It's important. Even when the words catch in your throat, it's still important to say what you need to say. And last week, we shared some ideas about that by means of compassionate communication. And there are spiritual practices and principles that we've been talking about. I'm going to mention this every week, that I'm basing these talks on spiritual practices on the book by one of my teachers, Reverend Robert Brumet, who is somebody that really understands that the way of being religious most effectively is through your own practice. Because it's not about dogma, it's not about sin or any kind of weirdness, but it's about reframing all of our life experience and knowing exactly what our center is, so that even when times are really hard and really scary, if we know what our center is, we will move through all things with a certain degree of ease and grace if we know what our center is. If that's your true identity, so be it. If that's your life purpose, so be it. It almost doesn't matter. But if you know what your center is, you will always be fine in the long run. And today's practice, this week's practice, is an idea which may be a little hard to want to embrace, but the name of this chapter is Everything is My Teacher. Everything is my teacher. And automatically we seem to go to, at least I do, a place where I think, oh, fine, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Okay, great. Everything that happens to us, however, has the opportunity, if we are practicing our own radical self-awareness, which I think was the first practice that we talked about, to understand that there is indeed some kind of lesson in this for me. Now, for some of us, if we're just starting out on a spiritual journey, that might be a huge mindset change or an authentic paradigm change. Most of us grow up thinking the responses to anything that's going to be challenging is, am I being punished? A, or B, why is this happening to me? Or C, why is this happening to me over and over and over and over? And those are not really high-value questions. The high-value question is, what's in this for me to learn? And if I'm willing to learn, then this thing won't happen again if I learn the lesson. And I will receive it in a different way if it does come back again. This is a big change of worldview for any of us. So many of us think that either the world is out to get us or they are out to get us, kind of same thing, or whatever. But it is not. It simply is. And life on this planet, for the most part, is very benign. And for the most part, this is a very beneficent planet to live on. I'm reflecting on that because I was watching Twilight Zone, an ancient Twilight Zone last night, where some poor schmucks were stranded on a hostile planet for 30 years. That's a sidebar. Okay. But yeah, everything has the opportunity to help me grow. And in that arc of growth, I become closer and closer to having an ongoing experience of an unimpeded access to my higher self, which is what spiritual living really is to be in a sweet spot where we know we have unimpeded access to our highest self, that we don't respond to everything from our ego, but from our higher self. Reverend Brumet writes in the beginning, to learn, being everything's my teacher, to learn is to gain the ability to express myself in ways not possible before the learning occurred. And I would have never thought of that in that way, but it did make me pause and reflect. To learn is to gain the ability to express myself in ways not possible before the learning occurred. When we realize that everything has an opportunity to teach us, be it good or a challenge, we also realize that this may broaden us, but it doesn't necessarily, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say that what we think about as everyday learning does indeed broaden us, but it doesn't deepen us. When we have the point of view that everything is my teacher, that I'm here to learn something from every experience I have, every person that I encountered along the path, then that has the opportunity to broaden and to deepen us. Because when we go beyond, I don't like to keep using the word ego, but it's really appropriate in this talk. When we go beyond that kind of superficial way of meeting each other on an everyday basis, or being suspicious of somebody, or like, what do they want from me, or why am I always the last one to know, that all that kind of junk goes away. All those low value, sort of victim-based responses will go away when we deepen into or rise to our higher self. And we can authentically say, as we're taught like in nonviolent communication or unity school, when somebody comes up to you and kind of says something challenging, if we can authentically say, tell me more, without that being a sarcastic response. Because I think sometimes when we learn that, our responses might be a little sarcastic. But if you can, if we can, and if we can as a people, listen for the sake of understanding, say what we need to say, do it in a civil, nonviolent way, and really understand that we have the opportunity. It's our choice whether we're going to learn something or not. And when we come from that higher self, when we're more in tune with the higher self, when we're more relaxed with the higher self because we know what our center is, we don't get thrown off our game. We do maybe for 10 seconds. But when we can have something difficult and honestly say, I'm not sure I understand, or tell me more, then at least we have the opportunity to enter into a discernment practice where we can decide if there's any validity. We can decide if there's actually anything to learn that will deepen and broaden me at the same time. You know, for those who might be at home, or if you have a pencil and you're taking notes, one of the early things that we learned around this idea about everything is my teacher, that if you write the word tormentor, like, why is that person always tormenting me? And then if you draw a slash between the R and the M, you will be astonished to find that your tormentor is also your mentor. There is something to learn. It can be very difficult sometimes, though. Because when we kind of get into a generally positive outlook in life, sometimes we are in the presence of tormentors, and we keep saying, well, there's something for me to learn here. There's something for me to learn here. This is one of the perils on the path. There's something for me to learn here. If you're still saying that for 14 years after this thing has gone on, the thing for you to learn is to leave. Am I right? Yeah, you know that. There's something here for me to learn in this horrible marriage that I've been stuck in. This every day is hell, but by God, I'm going to learn something. Go! Run! Pack the car! Flee! Not for a weekend. Not around one incident. It's the same thing with jobs. It was well before that I was in this teaching, but I was having a tough time getting my footing when I first moved to Southern California. And I had a job. Somebody said, oh, such and such needs an assistant, a well-known agent at that time, a very good one, very effective agent. And she was notorious through going through assistants very regularly. And I even remember somebody who had been an assistant called me and said, don't take that job, it'll ruin your life. And I thought, oh, please, I'm 32 years old. How could it possibly ruin my life? I'm a big boy. Well, you know, I sat at that assistant's desk for 5 days and I quit. Because I thought, you know what? I don't know what the issue is here, but this ain't right. No, I'm not doing this. And I guess I was old enough to know that, and I feel grateful that I was brave enough in the moment to do that. Of course, it gets harder as we go on, and there's more at stake. It also gets harder, and I acknowledge that. You know, one of the things that's tricky, because we can all tell stories, can we not? About things that went on and on, about illness, about loss and grief. There's something to learn in every human experience. And many times, at least it's been true for me, what I simply need to remember, it's a call to my spiritual mindfulness, a call to remember that to which my life is devoted and what my center is. One of the tricky things, though, is that, you know, we're very often not that aware of what we're learning when things are going well. Because we have an illusion that when things are going well, we have this illusion that, well, they're supposed to. I am so special, my life is supposed to be convenient. And you know, that's not part of the deal either. So especially when I'm around younger people, and things are going great, I will often say, remember everything that you're doing right now. Because everything that you're doing right now is creating this experience. It's just not that, oh my gosh, for crying out loud, all of a sudden I got lucky. But everything that you did prior to this and to this moment went into making this your current reality. So what were the steps that you took to get here? What has your mind frame been in your moving to this moment? And we don't take time to examine that. Almost ever. Very challenging things happen. We think, okay, if I've effectively changed my mindset, there's something for me to learn here. What is the lesson here? How do I walk forward productively from here? When something good happens, it's really important for us to be super mindful. What is the lesson? Oh, the lesson is everything that I did up until this point. When we're setting goals, very often we'll think of, well, what are all the steps I need to take to get there because I'm so unhappy with where I am right now. But if things are actually okay and they're working for you, please always make sure you take time to reflect on all that you did and felt and said and believed before this good thing happened. Very rarely talk about that. Almost as a sidebar, but I cannot let this go. I learned a lot over the last year and a half. Have you? I learned a lot. And because my energy really is based here, I learned a lot about church. I learned for sure, even though we have been saying it forever, I really did learn that the church is not the building. It's the people. And it's the purpose and the mission is what the church is. I learned how much I missed y'all, because you are the people. And while there were interesting things as we all tried to learn to do our business in a different way, that was sort of interesting. Not sort of interesting, it was very interesting and challenging. But I was very clear the whole time that it wasn't everything. So that we get to meet is such, oh, I mean, it's all gravy that we get to be together. And the purpose is the center. It's not the building. I'm going to make a wild projection as well, because what I learned with this group of people is that all y'all are not complainers. This is such an, whoever gets this church next, they need to know what they were doing right all the way up to that moment. Because I listen to all my minister friends and everybody's complaining and beating up on staff and angry and go, psh. It's like, you guys get it. And I think a part of that is due to the fact that this is not a pretend theology. This is about practical application of ideas. Tough things happen. Okay, you know what your center is. You are an expression of the living God. Do what you need to do. And you did. And there's no complaints. I think it's a miracle. An answered prayer. Let me not be silly. But that really is the effect of effectual prayer as well. And since I haven't seen so many of you in so long, but I also am going to make a prediction that neither Lisa Firestone nor Vincent Heckard nor David Lukens, who's not here, and Chris Croce, and our amazing tech guys, Carter and Reed and Garrett, for a year and a half, I never heard them complain once. Not once. Now, they may be doing that elsewhere. And about a variety of things. But I never once heard them say how horrible this is. 100% of my livelihood has disappeared overnight. Oh my God, I just bought a house. I'm going to wind up living in a cardboard box under the free. Nothing. And your success is assured. Because that's what it looks like at the beginning. That's what it looks like at the beginning. I can do this. And I will learn something through all this other than you don't know what's going to come along. We don't know. But we are adequate to every demand that is made on our lives when we know who we are and we know what our purpose is. We are more than adequate. So whatever is happening in your world, good, bad, or ugly, if we make the effort, right? Spiritual practice is making the effort in mind and heart, making the effort in mind and heart. If we make the effort with the encounters that get our attention, to say, there's something to discern here. There's something for me in this. And I guess I have to do the Emma Curtis Hopkins quote. Does anybody here know Emma Curtis Hopkins? Of course, Ron. Bless you, children. Emma Curtis Hopkins said, when ugly things happen to you, you need, and I like to say you have to put your hands on your hips and kind of speak with a little Brooklyn and say, like, this too is God, this too is for me, and I demand to see the blessing in this. I know Candy Toller likes that one. I demand to see the blessing in this. That's a demand on consciousness too. So if whatever is happening gets that energy going for you, just put your hands on your hips and, all right, I demand to see the blessing here. You got my attention. I'm ready. A full life of spiritual practice will always have us be ready. Lisa, would you join us at the piano to support us with some underscore? And pardon me while I hydrate. Let's conclude with a moment of silence and quiet time. Shall we do that? So breathe deep. And know, whether you fully grasp it or not, surrender into the ultimate reality that you are very God. You, yourself. Whether you agree with it in your conscious mind or not, that at some level of your being, you are perfect, you are whole, you are complete and lacking nothing. From that point, in the identity of your completeness, we can meet any person, any idea, any experience with a certain amount of poise and equanimity. Confident enough to know that, yes, there's something for me to learn here, and as I've dedicated myself to a life of curiosity, inquiry, and defenselessness, I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to deepen. I'm ready to be. Ready to be. I invite you to repeat that in your mind over and over as we support each other together in the silence now. I am peace and power and love, complete within myself. The eternal recapitulation of the universe. No thing of an inferior nature can come to me. And yet, as I move through my life, busy being the change I want to see in the world, using all my skills to support that goal, I may bump into others with different ideas. For a celebration of diversity also includes the full spectrum of human ideas. And so I'm always poised. I'm always centered in the truth of my eternal being. Peace, power, love is what I am. And curious to both broaden those capacities within me and deepen them, to lean into learning, to be willing to be taught more. I accept this not as a price to be paid, but as part of the glory of living. And I will see it just as that, both for myself and for all people everywhere. And together the people said, Amen. For those that do Facebook, thanks. It's been nice to be able to keep up with you and your families by Facebook, so I kind of appreciate that. Keep it up. It works. I'll thank you for being here today, because your very presence both helps us receive and shape this experience. So thank you very much, and also thank you for committing to your practice, because that is what matters most. Every time we keep a commitment, we are growing spiritually. It's the first step in spiritual growth, is a willingness to keep your commitments, and so I honor you for doing that. I know fellowship happens when we encourage each other on our journey, so why don't you reach out to somebody now that we're seeing some folks for the first time in a long time, and ask them what you're working on and how you can support them, or simply compliment them. That would be nice. It's kind of been low on compliments, I guess, for a year and a half now. It's like, yeah, Miss Joe, I think your hair is looking good back there. I know that that's new. That's very nice. Very nice. So compliment somebody on your way out. And as always, you pray for me and I'll pray for you, because that's just what God's children do. And before we sing out today, let's know the prayer for protection, shouldn't we? For those who are grieving, in harm's way, or perhaps near death. Let's know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. For wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And we're going to sing the peace song today. Let's do that together.
That was meant to be, with God as creator, family are we. Let us walk with each other with perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment